We have a new contender in the race to steal Max Verstappen away from Red Bull. Aston Martin have been linked in press reports with a massive billion-dollar bid for Max Verstappen. John, how seriously should we take this story? We've gotten used to Max being linked with other teams, particularly Mercedes. Toto Wolff has said any team would do handstands to have Max Verstappen in their team. So should we add Andy Cowell, Lawrence Stroll, Adrian Newey to the list of people who are about to join Toto's gymnasium?
I think there's two kind of timeline narratives to this story. There's what was reported last week, which was that Aston Martin are lining up this billion-dollar bid to lure Max Verstappen to the team, based on some sources suggesting that their sponsorship chief had been telling sponsors, investors, yeah, we're getting Max in the future. Obviously, these things spiral out of control, and the story got a good head of steam. But team was quick to deny it, said the story's not true. But equally, there is a timeline there where Max Verstappen has to be on their radar. This is a Formula One team that has clear sights on winning the World Championship. And if you want to win the World Championship, you need the best team, you need the best drivers. And if you want the best drivers, you've got to chase Max.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, F1 teams, they love to deny things that are actually happening in the background. Obviously, they issued a categorical denial of the story, which was about, as you say, the head of sponsorship saying we're telling sponsors that Max is coming. That might not be happening, but of course they may also be preparing a pursuit of Max in the background. Similar thing happened with Lewis and Ferrari, right? Fred Vasseur was saying, no, we're definitely not sending an offer to Lewis. And of course, later in 2023, they did exactly that. So there could be two things going on simultaneously here, right?
Yeah, I think the thing is what we call in Formula One the non-denial denial, where teams try to deny a story but actually aren't denying it. So you've often got to ask the right question to people. Sometimes if it's you say someone's leaving a team, are you about to get sacked or are you going to move on? They go, no, my intention is to stay. We saw it with Sergio Perez last year. I'm 100% staying at Red Bull. In the end, he's 100% not staying at Red Bull. This is the way it goes around. Aston Martin's denial was clear that story that was printed, they categorically denied that was true. But you cannot escape the fact, and I wrote this piece last week about the inconvenient truth behind it, is actually, if this is a team that's serious about winning the World Championship, if this is a team that wants to become P1 and beat Ferrari, beat Mercedes, beat McLaren, you need a top driver. And if you need a top driver, you've got to chase Max Verstappen.
Yeah, what we do know about Aston Martin is Lawrence Stroll is leaving no stone unturned, spending all the money he can find on building a super team, right? He's got Newey there now, Honda are coming, and these are two entities that Max has worked with before and have propelled him to basically all of his F1 success bar the last part of 2024. So it kind of makes sense logically from the outside that Max might want to go there if he feels that Red Bull is crumbling, if he needs to get out. Yes, he's locked in till 2028, but there's no doubt the Verstappens have negotiated some handy exit clauses if they need them. And surely he would prefer to link up with Aston, Honda, Newey than maybe join Mercedes, which is the team he's been most heavily linked with up until now.
Yeah, I think it will come down to car performance. If you're looking at this from Aston Martin's perspective, everything is being lined up now. They've got the super factory, they've got the money, they've got a World Championship winning engine, they've got the partnership with Aramco, they've got a new wind tunnel, designers Enrico Cardier and Adrian Newey all starting. Andy Cowell, he's shaking the tree there, making changes to get the engineering and race team all sorted. Everything's lined up. The elephant in the room is the drivers. You've got Fernando Alonso approaching the end of his career. Exactly when and where and how long he can go on for and perform at his best. We don't know. Is it 26? Could he stretch it out a year longer? We don't know. Then you've got Lance Stroll as well. He's potentially, hasn't shown us yet he's got the consistent speed to win a World Championship. And if you want to take on Ferrari with Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, take on Mercedes, George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, take on McLaren, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, you need two drivers. Red Bull paid the price last year for not having two strong drivers in its fight for the constructors. You need two drivers, the two best drivers you can get. And I think this is the thing that maybe there's not decisions being made just now on this is the target for 2027. But I think in the background, they're going to have to start thinking. They're going to have to start plotting because you don't want to be left in the middle of 26. Fernando Alonso says, no, actually, I don't want to carry on. I'm leaving. And then everyone else is signed up.
It feels like Alonso could be going on forever doing that kind of Kimi Räikkönen thing of just eking it out season after season. But he said, he's treating 2026 like his last season, potentially. We know him and Lance Stroll are kind of locked in through 2025 and 2026. But after that, it's an open question. And that is the point at which, as you mentioned before, the inconvenient truth rears its head, because at the moment you could say Aston Martin isn't really driver limited. They've got much bigger problems in terms of how the car performs, how they develop through a season. But at some point, they are going to become driver limited. And Alonso could be the limitation just because he's too old, but more likely Stroll is going to be the limitation because he's not performing at F1 Championship level. If there's a scenario where one of them has to make way for Max Verstappen because he says, right, I'm getting out of Red Bull, I'm coming before 2028, and Aston is the place I want to be, who makes way?
I think you've got to be realistic about this. I think it's naive to think that Lawrence Stroll would spend hundreds of millions of dollars on his own Formula One team, creating a World Championship winning team and not seeing his son want to be a part of it. Just doesn't make any sense at all. This is his motivation. He wants to see his son become world champion. So I cannot see a scenario, unless Lance Stroll is regularly qualifying P20 and doesn't like it and doesn't care and scoring 0 points, that he would not be a part of that team. So you've got to look at the other car. And I think a lot depends on the performance of the Aston Martin this year and next year. Is Alonso getting tired? Does he feel he can't perform at his best? Have the results gone their way or not? And there could even be a scenario where we go into 26, things click with Newey, things click with Honda, it gets into a race-winning scenario, Fernando delivers the wins, and the team feels actually he may want to carry on, but we need to go for someone else because we need to step up to fight for the World Championship. So there's a very interesting dynamic going to play out, and kind of who jumps first and who makes that decision. And it's a similar scenario almost to Lewis, where Toto's alludes to the fact that Lewis's decision to leave Mercedes actually stepped them away from making a difficult decision at some point to think maybe we can't carry on with Lewis. So it's quite interesting dynamic as drivers get towards the end of their kind of useful life for a team, how that moves forward and who kind of pulls the trigger.
Yeah, well, whoever ends up pulling the trigger first, it's all going to be based on performance, like you say, trying to read the tea leaves and figure out who's going to be the best bet in 2026 and beyond with the new rules. And that's why there's so much swell of rumour around Max and Aston, because Aston seem to be the horse everyone's theoretically backing for 2026. They're the team that can most afford to throw away 2025 to focus on the new rules. Plus they've got, as we already mentioned, ingredients like Newey and Honda coming together. But are we maybe reading that room a little bit wrongly at this stage? Are we getting ahead of ourselves, John?
I think so, and I think this is the kind of feeling you get from speaking to people at Aston Martin as well, that sure, they've got the factory, the wind tunnel's coming on tap, Adrian Newey is arriving, Enrique Cardiller's there, the Honda-Aramco partnership, everything's lined up that gives the potential to be fighting for the World Championship. But these things take time in Formula One. There's no overnight switch. The team's coming from a low base. You know, Andy Cowell's made a lot of changes after last season. It needs to step up this year. They can't write off the following season. You need to attract sponsors. You need the commercial rights money. And you need that measure of the team. What progress is it making? If you're stuck at the back, you don't know if you're in good shape, bad shape. This is the mistake that Sauber made, in abandoning current form. So they are pushing forward, but there's big uncertainties. I spoke to a team boss last year who told me, do not underestimate the influence of fuel in 2026, that the spread between teams could be greater just on fuel than it is from chassis or engine. So, this could be the deciding factor that we don't know. So, things are pushing on, and we don't know, how quick, is Adrian Newey going to get up to speed and understand the strengths and weaknesses of the car. He starts on March the 3rd. There's a suggestion he may even attend the Australian Grand Prix. Potentially, get his feet right under the desk straight away to get on top of the car and the challenges and what others are up to. So he'll be there, but there's no overnight miracle in this sport. You've got to push on. It takes time. Maybe 26 is a foundation into potential title in 27, 28, but I can't imagine it's going to be automatic that Aston Martin have what they need in 26, bang, they're world champions.